I thought this particular quote was an appropriate way to start the presentation. I see it misquoted often, so I had to go and look it up just to make sure I had the right version, and it's attributable to George Santayana. And basically why I wanted to show it was doing IT projects for a very long time, and yet we seem to still make quite a few mistakes. So we need to learn perhaps from things that have been done in the past, because even though technology changes and languages change, the basics of running a project are still the same, and you can make the same basic mistakes. So the ISBSG hopes to provide data so that we do learn from the past. It's got history data for us to learn from the past. Excuse me. Sorry about that, I just need to catch up on the slides. Okay, what we will cover today, I'll provide a background of the ISBSG for those of you that don't know who we are, and then explain what data is available and why you should find it useful and why you should trust it. But then I want to move on and actually show you some of the practical uses of the data and give you some of the results of our analysis that might be useful to you that you can take away. And then I'd like to also provide some rules of thumb that we've derived from our data and from other people's data in cooperation. And that, I think, will also give you some ideas about how you can quickly check a few things, particularly to do with estimation, quick checks of estimation. And during the presentation, provide you with some valuable graphs and charts, which will give you something useful to take away as well. Okay, so this is our agenda. Basically, introduce the organization, tell you a little bit about the data collection, explain why we think you can trust the data, answer some of the questions that we get asked about the data. Look, we have two repositories. One is the development and enhancement repository, which is the one that we started with initially about 17 years ago, and that is for development and enhancement, the development projects and enhancement projects, and also redevelopment, but they are a smaller number. And then we'll look at some interesting results from analysis of the data, and we'll look at where the effort's being spent in maintenance and support. That is a more recent repository of the ISBSG, because we felt that given that a large amount of money gets spent on maintenance and support, we should be providing data to the industry on that activity, or those activities. And then we'll just look at the benefits of submitting data to us and have a look at some of the products and services that are available. So the first thing we'll do is give you an introduction to the ISBSG. It's a not-for-profit organization that was established back in 1997 by a few metrics organizations from different countries. It was driven from here in Australia, where it's very early in the morning, by the way. And the first thing that was started was the idea that if we can provide data, if we can make it available at a reasonable price, then the industry will be able to use it and will be able to learn from history. Once you've made that decision, then you've got to decide what to collect. And the organization, the Australian organization at the time, started to put together questions. What questions do we need to ask to get the data we want? And a number of countries said, this looks really good, can we use that? But rather than just send it out and all operate individually, it was mutually agreed that they would start an organization. At that stage, I wasn't involved. And that organization, when I did get involved, was to become the ISBSG. And it simply exists to collect data, try and make that data as useful as possible, and to provide it to the industry at a very reasonable price so that we can improve the processes and the products that come out of the industry. It's pretty straightforward, really. We have an international membership made up of various international associations, and now, this year, 2013, for the first time, we've opened up our membership to industry members. So you'll notice there that Galarath and CAI are members of the ISBSG. And as members, they have a representative on the board, and they can have an impact on what the ISBSG does and how it operates. And then you can see the major industry associations from many different countries. So our principles in collecting the data are to be totally independent and collect data from wherever we can, and that data is sent to us voluntarily. Once we get that data, we then check its integrity, and I'll cover that a little more in the section on why you should trust the ISBSG data. We guarantee anonymity, and this is a strength in that people can send us data and know that no one will ever know where that data has come from. It's a weakness in that we don't have as much access to people who send us data, and there is some data that we cannot publicize in case it makes the identity of the submitter or submitters obvious. So we can't, unfortunately, go out and interview people like, let's say, Don Reefer, who we're currently working on a joint report with Don. He goes to organizations and he can ask a lot of questions. We rely much more on data submitted to us. We can ask questions through our administrator, who's the only person that knows who submits the data, but it does restrict us a little bit, so you need to know that. However, we've never had a problem with anonymity, and we get data from a lot of large organizations, small organizations who trust us, and we've never had a problem with their data becoming public or being misused. The whole organization is driven by practitioners, people who are in the industry, who know what they want, if you like, and who help to decide what we collect and what we publish. And it's practitioner accessible. We try and provide the data at reasonable prices for the people that want to use it. We're not for profit, and I sometimes think we're a little bit too good at that. I always put this caution forward because even though the data's been around a long time, I sometimes get concerned that people don't take this into account. We believe the data probably represents the top 25% of the industry. It doesn't reflect industry average. Because if you think about it, any organization that even knows about the ISBSG and is interested enough to send data to us has a level of maturity and a metrics program. So it's not likely that they're what you call organization. So when you look at our data, it's important to be aware of that and then to gauge your own organization before you start benchmarking against this data or using it for estimates to say, well, I'm looking at pretty good data and I should allow for that in whatever I do with it. So what do we collect for development and enhancement? We collect too much, some people say, or we try to, so we don't always get as much data as we'd like. So I have this constant battle when I go to the annual workshops. People want us to collect more data. And then I say to them, well, are you willing to give it to me? And it becomes a bit of a catch-22. They don't want to give you the extra data, but they do want to see it reported somewhere. So we have about 120 fields or more, I think, that we try and collect. But this core stuff, we identify the core data that we want.